Greetings gamers, Tim here again, and this is the second attempt at this. I'm playing catch up for the last 3 days of RPGADAY, mostly due to having a busy schedule and long afternoons. Today's question is for the 5th, but I'm going to go back and do the 3rd, 4th, and 5th all together. So, for August 3rd, it asks, how do you find out about new RPGs?
You talk in forums with the creators?
My friend just piped in and says, you talk in the forums with the creators. And that is a actual common way that I find out about new RPGs. Usually the RPGNet forums announcements, or when people are discussing them and asking questions about them. I also find out about in-world posts, a few blogs here and there from friends who are game designers. I am members of various groups on Google Plus and Facebook that are gamer oriented, and therefore they often will post, does anybody know something about this game? And then people will answer questions and get a general idea. For the most part, the best information is the question and answers, depending on how much participation there is. The more participation, the better information we get. But I also, check around. Sometimes I just start looking for subject matter and see if there's an RPG based on that subject matter. A common one is, I will go to Kickstarter and just look up all the RPG ones and see what they are. And there are quite a few, and some of them are like, already fulfilled, and some of them are on the edge of fulfillment, but it gives me a chance to get more information. But I do spend a lot of time researching new games, trying to find the one that will fit. Lately I've been looking for a new science fiction game, and I haven't found anything specifically that really thrills me with its backstory or setting. There are good games out there, but they're not necessarily the ones that, make me go, I want. So that is basically how I find out. Research, just like everything else, interest in it, asking questions, talking to people. For day 4, we have, which RPG have you played the most since August 2016? Now, in that time period, I have played several D&D 5th edition games that didn't get very far. I have played quite a lot of Luchador Beneath the Mask. I have also played a Weird West game that finally sort of dwindled and died off because we kept losing players, and there are only 2 of us left, and only one of them had been an original player. So it makes it kind of hard, because some of them have been doing it for years and just life hit them where it hurt and kept them busy. In addition to that, I played a lot of Marvel Saga. It is this particular playgroup that plays at this house who prefer that game. It may not be one of my highest top tier superhero games, but it is indeed one of those that I like and enjoy and will play and have a lot of fun with. And since it's simple, it's easy to just do a pickup game here or there. And I think that will be the one that I have most played since August 2016. Now, August 5th says, which RPG cover best captures the spirit of the game? That's a really tough one, because, to be honest, I'm not always big on the cover art of a role-playing game. If it's interesting and exciting, that's a good thing. But if it gives me some information through the art, not necessarily text, but through art, I have more interest in it than I would otherwise. I'm trying to think of a cover that really spoke to me about, what the game was about. And I'm not thinking of any that really comes offhand that is better than any other. I can think of some worse examples of ones that don't work at all. But one does stand out in my memory as being really clear about what was going on and what kind of things could be expected in. And that was Shadowrun First Edition and Shadowrun Second Edition. Those really had the best covers that said, this is what's going on. You're getting shot at while you're hacking something in an alley. That's not atypical for a Shadowrun adventure. The later covers were not necessarily as clear about what would be going on in the game, but the Shadowrun First Edition one definitely was. There are some others that come to a close second. Red Box Dungeons and Dragons, First Edition Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeon Master's Guide was also a very good one that comes up. So there's a lot of games that get their covers right, and then there are games that don't. They don't seem to understand what makes a good cover. And to give you an example, there's been several versions of Swords and Wizardry, and one of those versions of Swords and Wizardry just doesn't give you any idea what the game is about, and it's an old school rules or an old school Renaissance, depending on which term you prefer, role-playing game. So it's basically, in its heart, somebody's simplified version of D&D. But if you can't tell that from the cover, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to know? Now, on the other hand, fantasy tends to blend together. So when you go look at fantasy covers, they tend to quite often traditionally have dungeon characters, explorers, going into some dark depths and either, prepared for battle, in battle, or the like. And that's become such a traditional look for fantasy role-playing games that they don't always stand out, which is a shame. And lately there's been a tendency in some games, I will note this, Fate Core, also what is the prototype cover for the upcoming Starfinder game, Starfinder, which is the science fiction descendant of Pathfinder, of just having a group of characters standing there. They're not exactly doing anything. They're in ready positions, like they could be doing something, but there's actually no suggestion of movement or conflict or threat. Now, with Fate Core, it makes sense. They're trying to give you an example of what kinds of characters you can make in the book, and they're giving you an example of all kinds. That's true with the most recent version of GURPS that we have, which was GURPS 4th edition. Now, people say art is worth 1,000 words, and if it is, some covers just don't make that 1,000 words. They've edited it out. Other covers will show quite a bit of action. They will show a battle between starships if they're science fiction. They will show a battle between a monster and player characters if it's a fantasy game, or sometimes a science fiction game. So the RPG cover that, to me, best explains what goes on in the game is the very first edition of Shadowrun. And that's hard to beat because it really caught on at the time, being something that stood out from the pack, combining cyberpunk ideas with fantasy elements and trying to ground that a little bit in reality, even though there's magic going on in the background and there's dragons and there's fantastic monsters. They still try to ground it a little bit to be understandable and fun. And that cover is just it speaks a lot. You know, you've got a decker, you've got a some kind of street samurai, and some kind of ganger, most likely, shooting at enemies down the alleyway. And that is definitely what goes on in Shadowrun. So, that's my pick. I will do RPGADAY at 6 tomorrow. So, that's it for this one. This should catch me up for 3 days. Expect some more of these because later in the week I get busy and don't always have the energy to get back to the computer screen. Forgive any noises or anything else that's been not filtered out because I'm at a new location just doing this video this one time. Hopefully it won't have to become a regular occurrence because then I can get a snarky audience. Not that I mind the snarky audience, at least they're honest. Anyway, peace, good gaming, thanks for listening. I rambled on anyway, but I managed to keep it under 15 minutes and under 30 minutes. So we're good. Take care.